Religious favoritism. The Supreme Court of the United States backs Christians' fight for religious rights. The U.S. Supreme Court recently issued a ruling in favor of Gerald Groff, an evangelical Christian who accused his former employer, the United States Postal Service, or USPS for short, of religious discrimination. Groff resigned from his post after being compelled to work on Sundays, a day he regarded as a rest day based on his faith. The landmark decision in Groff versus DeJoy outlined that employers must demonstrate a substantial burden for refusing to accommodate an employee's religious observance, a departure from the previous de minimis standard. Quote, we think it is enough to say that an employer must show that the burden of granting an accommodation would result in substantial increased costs in relation to the conduct of its particular business, just as Samuel Alito penned in the court's ruling. The verdict was hailed by various religious groups who believe it strengthens protections for religious workers. However, the American Atheists argued that granting such religious exemptions is unconstitutional and could shift additional work burdens onto non religious individuals. So, let me provide a little bit of background here. So, there's this guy, I don't even remember what state he lives in, but he lives in like some tiny town. And typically the United States Postal Service does actually have no service on Sundays. The post office usually closed on Sundays. But this branch of the post office signed a contract with Amazon to deliver their packages on certain days, including the weekends. And they had a small staff. And this man had always said, I can't work on Sundays because this is my Sabbath. And he went but there was a coworker that had an injury and all this stuff, and basically they kept on they were like, "Dude, you have to work on Sundays. You have to work on Sundays." And he refused to work on Sundays. He just wouldn't show up. Other people had to constantly cover for him. He got written up at work. Eventually, when he faced some consequences for refusing to work on Sundays, and shifting this burden onto other employees, he resigned. And then this is when he began his legal action. And so basically, the court has said that previously the standard was just a de minimis, like undue burden standard. When your religious exemption that you're asking for presents an undue burden onto the employer, then they have the right to refuse that. And they didn't completely overturn that previous standard from about, I think, almost 50 years ago. Um, but what they did say is, okay, actually, the employer must show that they are shouldering a substantial burden by refusing to accommodate your religious exemptions, not just the minimum standard. And religious groups across the US celebrated this decision. A lot of Sikh groups and coalitions celebrated this because they want to be able to keep their beard and their turban in more places, including their kirpan, their little dagger. There were Mormons who were celebrating this decision, other Jewish groups that were celebrating this decision because they feel like they have an undue burden shifted on them because Jewish holidays are not typically recognized as public holidays and all this stuff. However, secular groups, there were groups that wrote in opposition to this decision, filed amicus briefs, such as the Freedom from Religion Foundation, the Center for Inquiry, American Atheists, and Americans United for Separation of Church and State. Basically, all the big boys when it comes to the legal action of secularism in the United States. And they're basically saying that this is religious privilege and that all these people get to have religious accommodations, but me as a non-religious American, I do not have any reason why I can just decide to opt out of any old thing that my employer wants me to do on the basis of some sincerely held belief, or my sincerely held beliefs would not qualify for receiving these exemptions because they are not religious in nature. Therefore, these are privileged. These specific kinds of beliefs are being privileged. And in this particular instance, I personally feel like this is a much more cut and paste case of just religious privilege. Yeah. Uh Armin, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we don't. I think we should do March 23rd. We should try to get that the Atheist Day a day that atheists get to get off work to see if they will respect that as well, as a way to
Honestly, that's
get some.
actually a really interesting idea.
Is there a way
That's a
that we could
really
push for
interesting
that?
idea. Where's the pen? I want to write that down.
Because guys, March 23rd is Atheist Day, and I think that we should push for atheists being able to get a day off work. That's where we could start. Anybody who's an atheist.
I can talk to the in-house legal counsel at the Richard Dawkins Foundation about this.
That would be amazing.
Do you think I
Ooh,
should?
yes.
Okay.
Oh, Dee is saying to check the comments in the article. Let's check that out.
Okay. Let's see. What was the first one? Let me bank it bigger for myself. Yeah, so people are responding to this on Twitter. One person said, "Say goodbye to anything being open on Sundays. Now everyone is just going to be a Christian all of a sudden, quote unquote Christian." Honestly, I doubt that. I don't know. Like everything being closed on Sundays now, I doubt it. Salim is saying, what would have been the outcome if he was a Muslim and refused to work on Fridays? It would have made headlines for 3 days, and commentaries would be running them as not integrating. That's a good point. There probably would be that narrative. And here's the thing. Would this particular Supreme Court be as sympathetic to that litigant? I don't think so. Even though it's the exact same kind of argument, I don't think that this particular Supreme Court would be as sympathetic. I'm not going to completely accuse them of being complete hypocrites, but I do say I don't think they would be as willing to lend the ear.
Okay. This one.
Someone else is saying, is this religious affirmative action? No. That's different. And I loved this comment. D saved the best for last, as always. Chonky Boy 100 is saying, F yeah, time to blaze it in the bathroom. Rastafari.
That's good.